Okay, working through the setup here. Hey, I'm Jeff Bailey. I want to welcome you to this Vita Yoga meditation. We have the physical practice, but then we also have this more contemplative practice, right? Which has to do more with the mind than the body. And yet, in a highest sense, they're one and the same. But it's very helpful to have a little meditative, philosophical understanding that can accompany any physical practice. Today, I'd like to talk about anxiety. We're in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, and we're in isolation, and it's, for one reason or another, it's causing anxiety. And the anxiety that comes up is really an opportunity. I want to talk to you about the opportunity because we tend to get anxious for a variety of reasons. And then we kind of associate these outer problems with causing anxiety. And then we can, if we're not careful, we get caught in this loop where we seek temporary relief from this thing that seems to be irritating us. And even going to a yoga practice or getting a massage or listening to comforting music, it can all just be a little bit of a cover-up for what really could be an opportunity to use the anxiety, especially since we're in this sort of isolated state right now. What an amazing time it could be for us to really do some of the deeper inner work. So here's the helpful point that I'd like to make. The thing outside of us that we seem to be fearful of is never the cause of the fear itself. That is a 180-degree switch from what we're accustomed to thinking. We're accustomed to having something frighten us or something scare us or some outer situation that takes our peace away. And so we get caught in this cycle and we feel like something out there has to change for me to be at peace. And so if we begin to play with this notion that this outer thing that seems to be provoking the anxiety is not really the thing that's causing the fear at all or the anxiety at all, just beginning to entertain that notion can be very, very helpful. Now, a quick aside. This is what we do in the Vita Yoga practice, the physical practice. We put ourselves in these situations, these shapes, come in lots of different shapes and sizes in the practice, but we put ourselves in these shapes, apply a little bit of pressure, and then we watch and we wait and we feel, where does the information come up? We feel the sensation come up, we feel the impact and the pressure of the shape, and then we stop. We hold, we wait, we watch, and we give the body and the mind an opportunity to adapt to the position. And as that happens, all kinds of physiological benefits begin to happen outside of our conscious awareness, inside the body. And that's how we start to get more freedom, more mobility, and more than those things, we get health inside the joints. Because we're simply exposing the body to a sensation and letting it do the work. The sensation that we feel, for example, if you bring your knee to your chest, the sensation that you feel, say in the groin, is not the problem. There's something else, somewhere else, more often than not. It doesn't have to be true all the time, but it's true most of the time. The symptom is different than the actual problem. And our world, our medical system has gotten so accustomed to addressing the symptom. All you got to do is turn on the TV and watch advertisement after advertisement loaded with deleterious side effects, these drugs that do nothing to get to the root cause of the problem. And we've just begun to accept that as the norm. oh, if I can just layer in a little bit of superficial change to get me by, then I'll be okay. But none of that has a lasting, helpful impact. And so, how do we move from applying these principles to the body to applying them to the mind? Okay, so now we have the virus, we have this thing, whatever the circumstance may be. We just happen to all kind of be under the umbrella right now of this global pandemic. What if we let this thing that seems to be bringing up anxiety and bringing up this tension and bringing up this fear, what if I am willing to sit with that a little bit, the same way I'm willing to sit in, say, a sukhasana position and curve forward and sit with the sensation that comes up. I don't want to be so quick to skirt away and judge this anxiety as a terrible thing. And maybe I can even begin to transition my mind and look at this quote unquote terrible thing as an opportunity. Okay? So how does this thing become an opportunity? I'd like to share an anecdote, kind of a silly but very helpful way of looking at this, and that's the movie Groundhog Day. Okay, you've probably seen the movie, almost everybody has. If you haven't, please take some time today and go watch it. And I'd like you to watch the character Phil, played by Bill Murray, and we know how uptight and agitated he is, right? He's an uptight New Yorker that has to go up to New Hampshire where they have this event. He doesn't even want to go there. The weather's bad. Everything is against him. See, now what if all those, the negative thoughts preceded the event that was, in his mind, a living hell? He didn't want to go there, right? See, so what if the fear that seems to be brought on by the coronavirus and isolation and whatever, you make the list. Heck, maybe it would be helpful to write out the list of things that seem to be irritating you. And then look at that list and say, what if the thought of anxiety preceded the form that it seems to be taking? Whoa. Okay. It takes a little trust, but wow, what a practice. I'll say it again. What if the thought of anxiety, the thought of fear, the thought of isolation, the thought of lack preceded the event itself? And now this event is just playing itself out according to the thoughts, my predetermined thoughts. See, which makes the things outside of me an effect of underlying thought. So now the practice is basically switching 180 degrees to where I begin to look at any distracting thought that comes up and say, wait a minute. I don't need to be afraid of that. I don't need to let that thing cause anxiety, but it is. I'm feeling anxious. And so, but let me see, what if I can use this as an opportunity to drop inside and see if maybe the thought has been there before. It has. It's just another way that those thoughts have gotten played out. It's a recurring pattern that we all have. It happens in relationships all the time. How we get into a relationship and we're going to make this one the best, and we hope for the best, and we're doing our best, but all of a sudden in this amazing relationship, all you got to do is open up People magazine. It happens to movie stars all the time. They get sucked into this thing, into the drama of the marriage, and then the unlooked at, the undealt with thoughts and needs of the past get brought to the surface. And instead of using the marriage as an opportunity to look at that, there's divorce. Some people have been, it doesn't last a day, right? And they can't handle it, and so they got to get rid of the seeming problem outside of themselves. Okay, so back to Groundhog Day, back to the movie, right? Where Bill Murray, he's in this situation that he's not happy about. The weather's terrible. It's cold outside. Everything is unfamiliar to him. It's full of people that he deems, well, they're just irritating to them because they're not as advanced as he is, right? And so this is the ego at work, putting outside things as the cause of my distress. And it's the normal way we function in the world, but it doesn't have to be our natural way. It's not our real way. So what happens? One morning, Bill Murray, the character Phil, wakes up, and it's like, wait a minute, I've been here before. So he gets caught in this time loop where he has to experience the same problems over and over and over again until he finally makes the switch in his mind. That's what we're all doing. We're all on our own time loop, and we all keep going through the same problems in different forms over and over again. Okay, so what a gift to have this movie where we can see the character Phil catch himself, change his mind about the situation, but then he proceeds along, gets caught up in another kind of anxious, fearful, disheartening situation, and then poof, back to sleep he goes, which is, this is how the ego keeps us asleep. So he goes back to sleep, wakes up again to the same song. What a great song that they chose, right? And 6 a.m. he wakes up, and now he remembers, if I change my perspective about this little thing, then something out there will start to change. That's miracle mindedness. Changing the perception of what's out there. And then sometimes slowly, sometimes very quickly, the outer circumstances in the world starts to soften and it starts to change, right? Seen through the lens of love is an entirely different world than the world seen through the lens of anxiety, or through the lens of fear, or through the lens of hate, right? And we all have these little ways that we prefer seeing the world that keep us special and separate, but really keep us unhappy and alone and not feeling very good about ourselves. So to recap, now I'll try to put it in fairly simple terms here. A few steps. The first step, and this is very important, they're all important steps. The first one, you have to want a better way. You got to be able to look at your situation, your circumstances, whatever it is, and say, in spite of this situation, it seems so terrible, I have to want a better way inside. See, didn't Phil have to finally come to those terms in the movie Groundhog Day? Didn't he finally have to wrestle with his ego enough to say, okay, I'm going to, as much as I'm attracted to my ego and this way of seeing the world that makes me so special, I'm going to realize it's not really working for me. I want a better way. That's number one. And if you watch the movie and you see how Phil is so attached to the ways that don't work for him, if you feel that way, then it's okay. Don't fight it. Just watch yourself wanting your way, not ready to get out of your way, but watch it from a place of kindness. Just observe, if you can, with a little space, the life you live according to your own dictates, okay? That's number one. You have to want a better way. Number two, don't change a thing, okay? Because the moment I start to change my behavior or if I want to change the outer situation or the circumstance or start to try to manipulate the people around me, now I've fallen into the same trap. Okay, I could become aware of it, I could want a better way, but then I try to manipulate somehow the things around me. And that's just level 2 of the same ego-oriented trap. 1, you have to want a better way. 2, accept things as they are. Don't change a thing. Number 3, look at this thing that seems to be causing the fear or the irritation without judgment. See, if our reality is peaceful and whole and complete and absolutely content 100% of the time, if that's the nature of true self as a reflection of love itself, then the irritation and the ego-minded ways have been layered over the top of that, right? And so we have to want to get back to that. So step 1 in the separation is the irritation itself. Step 2 is judging the irritation. Remember Chris Farley, the character that he played in on Saturday Night Live, where he would be he would interview some famous person, and then he kept asking questions that he would feel guilty about, and then he would beat himself up. So that's what I'm talking about. We start to recognize the things that irritate us, and then we judge the irritation. So now you're going to take a little step back and look at this thing that irritates you, the thing that causes anxiety. Look at it without judgment. Now, those of you who've been in the Vita yoga practice, you know what starts to happen. Now this thing that's a little bit irritating or bothersome starts to lead you closer to the source. And that's what we want to do. We want to get back to our source. Instead of being pulled away by outer circumstances that seem to dictate our happiness, we want to go inside and we use this thing that we're afraid of. It could be a financial situation. It could be a relationship situation. You may not even be able to put a finger on it, right? Why am I feeling so anxious? I'm home. I'm by myself. There's this thing called a pandemic going on around me. I don't have it. Why am I anxious? That gives us insight into the ancient feeling of anxiety itself that precluded the event. So we begin to look at the thing that causes anxiety without judgment. And then what can be very helpful is recognizing how we answer fear's call almost all the time. When we get anxious, we get afraid, we have this knee-jerk reaction. What do? Do you go to the fridge? What do you do to mitigate that? Do you turn on the TV? Do you call a friend? Whatever it is you do, start to look at the mitigation. And while you do those things, remember, you're not going to change the behavior, you're not going to change the thing. While you're doing those things, watch yourself do it, and then ask love for help. The ego is always the first and loudest to speak. It's the knee-jerk reaction. And what we want to do is put a little space in there somewhere where you begin to realize that you don't have to associate so personally with the outer situation. You put a little space in, ask love for help. What would love have me do? What would love have me do in this situation? And then wait. Keep eating the ice cream. Stay on the phone call. Keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. But maybe you start to pause a little bit. Maybe there's a little space that starts to enter in. Now, this is the gift. This is the golden opportunity. Ask for love's help. And let the voice of love begin to replace the voice of fear. It's a lot of talking. Just close your eyes for a moment. Sit comfortably. And I'll slowly talk you through the steps. Sit any way you like. Lean against the wall. Lay on your back. Sit easily. Sit easy. And just say to yourself, plant this seed for a better way. I want a better way in my heart and in my mind. I'm done trying to manipulate the world. I'm done trying to get my way. I'm done reacting to the whimsical ways of the world. Soften. I want a better way. Now feel the freedom that comes with not having to change a thing. Whatever you're doing is perfect. It brought you to this moment. What can seem like the most horrific of situations can be gifts if you're just willing to give it some time. Wait. And ask love for help. Let love show you the way to the door that opens to freedom and to peace. And a world that is an extension of love and not the projection of fear. Soften your body, soften your mind. Everything is going to be okay. Everything. Okay, and then maybe you have a glimmer of peace, a glimmer of light comes through, and then the anxiety comes up again. Okay, these are ancient feelings. With a little practice, with a little patience, we can catch them for what they're not. Catch the thought that separates. Ask for love's help in holding this thought, this feeling that promotes some separation on some level. Hold it to the light of your highest awareness. Hold it to the light of love, like an offering. Here, love, help me with this anxiety. Show me a better way. Okay, and just like Phil did in the movie, it took practice, didn't it? It took him a few times. And now we have a practice that will serve us for a lifetime. But we keep cleansing the lens that perceives. The eyes just light on things. The eyes just land on things. They report to the mind, and the mind gets to determine, am I going to see this through the lens of anxiety and fear? Or am I going to hold that old, dark, dingy, unhelpful lens to the light of love where it can be polished and cleansed? No longer will I look through the lens of fear. No longer will I look through the lens of anxiety. No longer will I look through the lens of separation. This is our yoga. We begin to look and perceive and experience through the lens of joined unity. Love itself. I hope you find this helpful. Thank you very much. Namaste.